Hello and welcome to Bored and Confused, where I review shows based on two criteria. One, was I bored? Two, was I confused? Today's show is Cats, the Jellicle Ball. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this bold reimagining of Cats. But before I do, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. Click that notification bell. It really helps me grow this channel, helps me see more theater, and come and share my thoughts with you and start the conversation. All right, so this is going to be one of my off-the-cuff rambles. I think this show deserves it. So this may be a little longer video. If you want to skip ahead, there are time codes in the description and you can skip ahead to maybe the parts that you want to hear about. But we're going to go on a journey with this because I have a bit of history with cats. All right, so what did I know about this show going in? Well, I knew that Cats, the Jellicle Ball was really popular, I believe, last summer off Broadway. Got a lot of great buzz. I wanted to go see it, but it started selling out and the tickets were really expensive. So I didn't see it, and I really wanted to. And then when it announced that it was coming to Broadway, I was like, great, finally I can grab a ticket. So was super excited to see this show. My history with Cats, you know, I'm a child of the 80s, so I remember when it came out, I was probably like 10 years old or something. And it opened in 1981, you know my age now, and on the West End, and then a year later it opened in 1982 on Broadway. And this was really the first of the British mega musicals. If you don't like mega musicals, Cats is the one to blame. You know, there's a fascinating story behind Andrew Lloyd Webber. Trevor Nunn, who was, I believe, the artistic director of the Royal Shakespeare Company, was kind of a highbrow director that they brought on to direct this, but they thought they needed someone with a big name to get the permission from Valerie Elliott, who handled the rights to T.S. Eliot's work. Old Possum's book for practical cats, which this show is based on. Check out the Wikipedia page. I won't go into all of it here, but it's really got a fascinating development. A lot of it was developed in the rehearsal studio, which makes sense for a piece like this. Andrew Lloyd Webber just wrote a bunch of songs based on these poems written by T.S. Eliot. And you know what I find so interesting about this show and about Andrew Lloyd Webber, his first big hit was Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which was a show that was written for kids to perform. It was essentially theater for young audiences. And Cats is really continuing that tradition because it's a book for children, it's poems for children, and it's something that Andrew Lloyd Webber had loved as a child. So I also find that this has a lot in common with Joseph because it uses a bunch of different musical styles throughout it. It's very eclectic. When I think of children's theater, having like a rock number, a 1950s number, having a vaudeville style number, having all these different styles of music really works well for children's theater. And as we see, it works really well for adults. That's why Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat and Cats are some of his most successful shows. So I'm gonna be honest here. I've never liked Cats. I don't really like the mega musicals because for me, I want shows that really have heart and deep character development. I am a Stephen Sondheim fan more than I am an Andrew Lloyd Webber fan. But I don't argue with success. And Andrew Lloyd Webber's mega musicals are hugely successful, more successful than Sondheim's musicals are. Cats had a hard time getting investors involved in it because it was so out there. So much so that Andrew Lloyd Webber, who believed in this show so strongly, took out a second mortgage on his house. And if Cats hadn't been a success, he would have been ruined and we probably would have never gotten all the other great Andrew Lloyd Webber shows that followed it. But why do I not like Cats? I saw it on tour first and then I saw it on Broadway. I did a truncated production of it in university. I did a professional production at a regional theater. Guess who I played? In the comments below. If you get it right, I will give you a little cat emoji with heart eyes, and only I can give those. So I know this show. I've performed it, I've watched it, I've seen the video of it. I listened to it when I was a kid growing up. I know the show really well. And I've never loved it. Because to me, it is not a book musical. To me, it doesn't have a narrative. It has a conceit. The conceit being that we've got a bunch of cats, suicidal cats, who want to die and be reincarnated to a new life. I don't know why they want that, with the exception of one cat who is not doing so well. I get why she would want a new life. But for me, the show, I just get so exhausted with it because it's just one song about a cat and another song about a cat. And the lyrics, because they came from a poem, although I will note that as poems go, T.S. Eliot's poems are really good for turning into songs because they have strong hooks. They feel like lyrics. But because they're poems, they're written in couplets for the most part, which, you know, means da-da-da-da-da-da rhyme, da-da-da-da-da-da time. And they're all written, let me tell you about this cat. So every song in this show is either a cat telling you about another cat, or they take the lyrics or the poem and they change he to I, and then the cat can sing about themselves for a few lines. And Lloyd Webber does do an amazing job of giving us as much variety as possible. Sometimes it's one cat singing about another cat, sometimes it's a cat singing about themselves, sometimes it's two cats singing about a cat, but it is the same kind of feel, one after another. And the reason this show keeps the energy is that the music styles are all referencing styles that we're very familiar with. But Lloyd Webber does a great job of not making us think about a song. So like Rum Tum Tugger is kind of doing a Mick Jagger moment, kind of a rock song, but it really is its own song. Jenny Anadots is like a vaudeville tap number. Yeah, there's all these different styles of music that really keep the energy up with the show. But essentially, to me, this show is a review. It is a review of poems, and that's how it started. And in rehearsal process, they started to develop these characters, and Grizabella became the glamour cat, who, interestingly, the poem that T.S. Eliot wrote about her was not included in the book because it was deemed to be too depressing for children, which is why for this show, which is really can be for children, this is a great show for children, maybe not, well, we'll talk about the revival in a second. I told you it was going to be a ramble. But, you know, the original Cats, great for kids, although long for kids, long for my attention span. So it's ironic that it's a show pulled from a children's book, kind of written in the style of theater for young audiences, but yet it has the length, 2.5 hours, sometimes more, for an adult audience. So the reason I just never liked it is I got so tired with it. And when I actually did the show, I was shocked to discover, because we worked with someone from the original Broadway company who directed it, there's kittens and there's cats. Did not know that until I did the show. And there's a lot of backstory and a lot of things were developed that maybe as an audience we feel, but we don't exactly know. Like I always wonder with Grizabella as a cat, like what happened to her? Is she just old? Did she get kicked out? Did she get hooked on catnip? And interestingly enough, I actually feel like the character arcs work better in Cats the Jellicle Ball because they're not cats anymore. They're real people. This is all over the place. Sorry, folks. I really wished in this Grizabella, I wish they had the space to do rewrites, to write new lyrics, because Grizabella now is this faded drag queen, kind of perhaps trans woman, I don't know, but character, and I wanted to know. I just assumed that she probably got hooked on some drugs or something, crystal meth or whatever it was, cocaine, it was the 80s, and basically destroyed herself, and she's homeless now. I feel the original Cats, Grizabella was being rejected by the other cats, and then they come around. I feel in this one, Grizabella has rejected herself, and that the community is there to open her. I'm getting emotional for some reason, but the community is there to accept her, and she can't allow herself to forgive herself for whatever it was, her drug addiction, maybe the things she has done to other members of the community. This is crazy that I'm getting emotional about it. Anyhow, okay, whew. So as you can tell from that moment there, I was really moved by this, which is crazy because I hate the show so much. I hate Cats so much. But this spoke to me, and I think it's because, so let's talk about, I've talked about what I know about Cats. What do I know about the ballroom scene? I don't know a huge amount. Like I've been to a ball, and I have to say the one difference between Cats, the Jellicle Ball, and a real ball is that this started on time. Real balls do not start on time, and they go forever. But anyhow, I've been to a ball. RuPaul's Drag Race is heavily influenced by ballroom culture. I've seen Paris is Burning, which if you want to know about 1980s Harlem ballroom scene, it is an amazing documentary. Check that out. I've seen episodes of Pose. I'm aware of Legendary. I'm aware of the ballroom scene, kind of what it's about and how it works for people. So this show, it works best for people like me. If you know Cats and if you know ballroom culture, this is the show for you. It really, I think, is geared for an LGBTQ audience. That being said, I think it's well done, so I think it can appeal to all audiences. And anyone here who is not familiar with the ballroom scene or Cats, whoever you might be, I don't know why you're watching my channel, but if you are, please go see Cats, the Jellicle Ball, and let me know what your experience is like going into it not being familiar with the source material or with this new adaptation. So what is Cats, the Jellicle Ball? Kind of alluded to it already, but it is a reimagining of Cats in the world of the 1980s ballroom scene in Harlem. I feel a lot of Andrew Lloyd Webber's musicals they're very light on substance. You know, like I said with Cats, it was really developed in the studio, who these cats were and creating. He just wrote a bunch of light songs of setting these poems to music. There's not a lot of depth there. It's not like with Sondheim where his lyric, it really is so specific that it really can only be about one character in one situation. You can't do these crazy reimaginings with Sondheim's work because it is so specific, and that's why I love Sondheim. But you know, some of the Stephen Schwartz shows, Pippin and Godspell, I feel these shows that have such a like childlike TYA, theater for young audiences, feel to them, Cats, Joseph, that really allow themselves to be reinterpreted by directors and people with an interesting idea. So it's such a catch-22, whereas my goal as a writer is to write things that are very specific. But in a way, by writing things so specific, it makes it more difficult for them to be reimagined in a different way. So Cats is a reimagining in the world of ballroom culture. And for the most part, it works surprisingly well. Now, you have to go into the show knowing that these poems are set in, the 1930s? This old compared to us, this old version of England, and they're talking about the larder shelf and a lot of Britishisms that, you know, the Russell Hotel, and there's a lot of locations and the kind of foods that they're eating. It's very British. These poems are so British. You know, those phrases don't work with this new reimagining, except there is when they say Queen Victoria and they hold up a sign saying Queen Victoria, and it's a picture of a famous ballroom personality, a famous queen in ballroom. So that's the interesting thing. And I think as you watch this show, and I knew this going in, I knew what it was, you do need to know going into this what it is. I think it's important because otherwise, if you listen to the lyrics and try to have them make sense in the New York ballroom scene, it's just not going to make sense. But every so often, something does make sense, and that is the delight of Cat the Jellicle Ball. There's a moment where Gus the theater cat is played by Junior LaBeija of the House of LaBeija, who is, I believe her voice is featured in Paris is Burning. She has all the liftable quotes. There's tons of quotes from that movie that you hear RuPaul say in her show. And so Junior LaBeija plays Gus the theater cat. And it took me a second. I was watching and go, who's this actor? And then I like glanced at my playbill and I was like, LaBeija. And then I realized who it was. And all of a sudden it gave more meaning. So, you know, LaBeija is talking about being a theater cat, but we understand she's really talking about being a ballroom cat. And the whole idea of cat, pussy, being feline, being feminine, you know, we kind of accept that the word cat is referring to this cat kind of meaning a queen or someone in ballroom is a cat. And yeah, you go with it, it works. All right, let me get all of the credits out of the way because I am notorious for forgetting to mention people. So this is directed by Zaylan Livingston and Bill Rausch. And it is choreographed by Omari Wiles and Arturo Lyons. I'm not going to go into their history, but they're all involved in the ballroom scene. So this is very authentic ballroom that we're getting. And the music supervisor and director is William Waldrop. That's important too, because this music, it is the music from the original Cats, but there's moments where it's got the ballroom treatment. So it's a very cool juxtaposition between the two. And it also works, the ballroom scene was in the 80s, Cats was written in the 80s. So there's so many parallels in this show that really are working. Scenic design by Rachel Hauk. Costume design by Queen Jean. Lighting design by Adam Honore. Sound design by Kai Harada. Projection design by Brittany Bland. I just want to call out, technically this show is fantastic. The projections, the lighting, the costumes, everything is, the show is firing on all cylinders. And that's what you need for a show like Cats, which is all about the spectacle. And it's a dance show, and so the dance is so important. So the set features a runway in the center of the stage. The audience is also seated on the stage. There's two risers on either side of the runway. They've put in the boxes, it's bar seating, like little cocktail tables and chairs. And they've also added like booths to the front row. So you feel like you're in a club. They've got, at the back of the stage, there's a judging table where the judges can sit at and raise meow or chop, which is tins across the board. There's so much ballroom phrases in this show. And so the set is great. The Broadhurst Theatre is not one of the biggest Broadway houses. This is a perfect size for this show. Honestly, there's not a bad seat in the house. I got a ticket on TDF. Telecharge has a rush and a lottery, and they also have an in-person rush at the theater. And those are all between $45 and $50. I got my ticket for $50 on TDF. It was in the orchestra, seat 104, row P. So a little far back, but center section near the aisle. Great. And I also went up and watched some of the show, second act, from the mezzanine, because I wanted to get a view so I could tell you guys about it. So because the runway comes down past the edge of the stage, it means that in the mezzanine, that the sight lines, when they come to the end of the runway, the person's head in front of you probably will be in your way, just because it's not designed for the stage to come down that far. But the runway doesn't come so far that it goes under the mezzanine, so you can always see the full runway, but you may have to do a little dodging and weaving. This show moves a lot. And also, because they have the risers, they sometimes stage people far over on either side. So if you're on the edge of the theater, every so often someone might be singing and you might be like, where are they? Or sometimes the actors are in the aisles. So you're not always going to be able to see. If they're in an aisle upstairs and you're in the orchestra, you're not going to be able to see them. But 95% of the time, I was always able to see who I was supposed to be looking at. So honestly, snag your ticket to this show. Get a cheap ticket, doesn't matter where you sit. Another thing about the audience is you should know, this is a very enthusiastic audience. We are encouraged by Junior LaBeija at the beginning of, they do the voiceover, and we're encouraged to clap to, they have fans. They give the first 50 people online to get into the show, get free fans. People bring their fans, bring your fan. If you don't have one, they're selling them for $30, but they've been selling out at merchandise. So bring your own fan. People are clacking their fans. People are cheering. This is not your typical theater experience. Oh, it's also very cold in the theater and very loud. So if you're an old man like me, bring your parka, bring your earplugs. There are some quiet moments. I did the earplug in and out. I don't love having to do that, but I just don't like loud noises. I just don't like loud music. It was right on the edge too, where I probably could have done it without the earplugs, but I have tinnitus in one of my ears. So if it gets too loud, I start hearing ringing for days afterwards. It's not worth it. So I do earplugs. So let me talk a little bit about the things that are working. As I already said, I felt like the Grizabella story works better when it's a real person, mainly because I feel like I can bring an idea of what it might like to be a trans woman, or to be in the ballroom culture, or to have drugs be very prevalent, to become homeless. I think I brought a lot of Paris is Burning to this, because it really shows how these Latino and Black kids, maybe not kids, and they're all different ages, but disadvantaged people, and they really found community, and they found a way to present themselves that's truer than what society puts on them. So I think I was bringing a lot of Paris's Burning to Cats the Jellicle Ball, which is why I actually do recommend knowing a little bit about ball culture and LGBT movement and all that. Macavity worked so much better in this. Macavity in the original musical is, we don't really see Macavity. He's like disappearing and people are talking about him, and he steals Deuteronomy, and none of it makes sense in the original Cats. Now, in this one, it doesn't make total sense because they really couldn't rewrite the show. So they indicate these things. But, I was going on with the ride. And so here, Macavity is, I don't think this is a spoiler, but if you want to go into this fresh, you can turn off the video now and go see Cats the Jellicle Ball and then come back and watch the rest of this video because it is long. I loved that Macavity is stealing clothes, is mopping, as the term goes, is mopping clothes to wear at the ball. And this was a strong through line. I remember in Pose that I watched, it's drag queens are known, the 5-finger discount is real. So I love this idea that Macavity is the one who's just really good at stealing Prada and Chanel and name brands from department stores. And this eventually comes back to haunt her and results in Deuteronomy not being kidnapped, but having to pay for the crimes of Macavity. I thought this through line worked so well in this version. I also really loved Mungo, Jerry, and Rumple Teaser. They're from Victoria Grove, New Jersey. And they do, so all of these songs have kind of category is, and some of these are real categories for sure. Some of these categories they may have made up. I'm not sure because I don't know all the categories. But this was pairs, which probably is a real category. So they competed in the pairs category. I thought they were great. Their choreography is fantastic. Jenny Anadot has been reimagined as a house mother, the House of Dots. I thought this was also brilliant because she's this mothering type in the original, and it worked really well where she's getting one of her daughters ready to compete at the ball. I thought that was great to really show the audience that part of the story. Bustopher Jones is treated as a body positivity moment because Bustopher is a very round cat, and Rum Tum Tugger is done as realness. Realness is, dressing like, well, for the men's realness, it's dressing like a construction worker or a student or a business exec from the 1980s. I really like the realness more for the female presenting because it's really cool to see how these trans women or drag queens really, it's also fashion is more interesting, I think, for women to see how they're going to put on the executive realness or the opulence of a Hollywood starlet. But in fact, this is my 2 cents. Look, these guys know what they're doing. They're in the ballroom culture. But I actually thought Bustopher Jones and Rum Tum Tugger could have been switched because the category for Bustopher Jones is body, and she's a very full-figured gal, and Rum Tum Tugger is realness. And I actually thought they could have been flipped because the Rum Tum Tugger certainly has body. He's giving body. And Bustopher Jones, to me, he's rich. So I felt like Bustopher Jones could have been all about the realness of the Upper East Side realness, the executive realness. But they chose to go the opposite direction. Okay, you go along with it. Another thing that I thought was great were cuts, because there's sections, the Growl Tiger's Last Stand section, which is the opera section that goes on for like 15, 20 minutes. It has never worked for me. We did it in the show I did, and I was like, what are we doing? Why are we Siamese cats? That's also an issue with probably not politically correct now to do the Siamese cats. But the whole thing about cats, it's been set up as it's cats competing to see who's going to get another life. What they did in the movie and later productions, also the one they did for TV, is they brought on in a real legend, like Ian McKellen plays the theater cat in the movie. And that's what they did here. They brought in a real legend of Junior LaBeija. And to me, just have them reminisce about how great it used to be, that's all we need. We don't need to go into their fantasy. The problem is if you go into their fantasy, then you have to cast a younger actor because they have to look like they're old and then throw it off and play the young Growl Tiger. For 20 minutes, it's a story within a story. We don't need it. It's too much. Glad they cut it. The other thing they cut was the fight between the Jellicle cats and the Pollicle dogs. Again, doesn't go with the conceit of the storyline of we're just introducing all the cats They're making their case as why they're the coolest and why they should win the ball and go to the Heaviside layer. So yeah, thank you for cutting that. All productions of Cats, regardless of whether it's done in ballroom or not, should cut those parts. I've never liked that, and the show does not need to be that long. All right. Anybody disagree with me? Bring it. All right. What doesn't work for me? Well, the old Deuteronomy, I mentioned the kidnapping. It never worked for me in Cats, in the original Cats. And here it works better, but it's still clunkety clunk, clunk, clunk because they can't rewrite the lyrics. So it has to be shown through movement. And so we don't, there's moments where they whisper to each other. We assume that she's like, Deuteronomy got taken by the popo. I don't want to spoil things, so I won't go into that too much. But some of the moments that they add on with the ballroom culture and this new narrative, some of them work great, some of them are more clunky. And it's just a nature of the show. And let's be honest, there is room for a ballroom musical. We've got Drag Race, we've got Pose, we've got Legendary, we've got Paris is Burning. I would love to see a musical that actually is written about this world, where we actually have characters, where we can write songs that take us to the heart of these characters. And I think maybe this will open the door. I'm sure people have written that musical, so I want to see that show. I'm sure it's out there. I want to see a musical that's really about the ballroom scene. This is great. This is fun. This is just a little taste of what a big ballroom musical could be. And I'll take it. I'll take it for now. That felt like closing remarks, but it's not. Let me keep going. Magical Mr. Mistoffelees is a little weird, though, because they're femme presenting, and then to call them Mr. Mistoffelees, but I get that's the name of the cat, and it's in the lyric of the song. Look, Mistoffelees makes no sense in the original musical. Deuteronomy gets stolen, and so they call on Mr. Mistoffelees, who does magic, and he magically makes Deuteronomy reappear. And we're like, oh, great. It's so cheap because we have to go, oh, Deuteronomy's gone, Deuteronomy's back. We don't have to care how it happened. It's such a dumb narrative. And here as well, if you actually had a narrative where a character knew a lawyer or a character broke someone out of prison or something like that, that could be really interesting. But here it's just a magic trick, and Deuteronomy is returned to us just like in the original Cats. But what's interesting about Mr. Mistoffelees' magical powers, it's kind of brilliant in that it's just really funny. Mr. Mistoffelees' magical powers is that when competing on the runway, they has the ability to snatch wigs and has the ability to pull those drag items out of a hat and fans and yeah, I should probably do a spoiler alert because that was kind of delightful. Their magical power is basically winning the runway by sabotaging the other contestants with their magical powers. It was ridiculous, but I went with it. I think probably my biggest confusion was Skimbleshanks. She's shown, I think, I'm not sure if she was dressed as Long Island Railroad or she was dressed as MTA. Probably MTA, because I know they play the subway recording. So it makes sense. New York ballroom scene. Skimbleshanks is now in charge of the MTA. But the lyrics for Skimbleshanks are so British and Scottish, and I'm not familiar with this actor. And I should be giving a shout out to all these actors because some are from the ballroom scene, some are from Broadway, some are from both. I'm sure this is many people's new New York Broadway debuts, and it's great to have that authenticity there. So I'm going to actually shout out who Skimbleshanks was. She had a great wig. Emma Sophia, beautiful dancer. I believe she's Latina because a lot of the lyrics went into Spanish, but not in any logical way. Sometimes she would be Spanish, and then just one line would be in English, or I did not understand it. If you speak Spanish, let me know if her switching back and forth made sense. I guess it's just a call out to maybe Spanish Harlem and to the nature of New York as having a large Latino population where a lot of people speak Spanish. I just thought it was weird. Yeah, so Skimbleshanks was a stretch. And then I have one slight criticism of the Jellicle Ball. The biggest dance moment for me was in Jellicle Songs for Jellicle Cats, which is such a great, I'll be honest, it is such a good opening number. When they devised this opening number, it's long, but it is so good. It's so good at setting up the world building, and letting the audience know what we need to know. So you've probably seen it in the commercial, but there's a moment where there's a red velvet rope that gets taken down so they can come into the ball, and they all move in unison, coming towards the audience, doing this great choreography. And for me, that was the most powerful moment. I was thrilled, and the audience went wild. You know, having done the Jellicle Ball, the original Cats, there is a big unison moment in the Jellicle Ball that is so great. Here, what they did is they did unison movement, but they faced them in all different directions on the runway, which I think works because we've got audience all around. We've got audience on the stage, we've got the orchestra everywhere. And so it was cool. And then it goes into runway. The Jellicle Ball finishes with walking the runway, which makes sense. But for me, it's been so long since the opening number. I wanted a unison moment again, where everyone on the stage, even if they're spread out more, but is facing one direction, doing movement. It's so thrilling when that happens. And so I felt I only got that moment in the opening number. It's my one little criticism about the choreography. Yeah, Cats was groundbreaking when it premiered in 1981. It was the first of the mega musicals. I think it was one of the first musicals to use this synthesizer. It was spectacular on the lighting, the set, the costumes, the concept, on every level. And in many regards, what they're doing with the Jellicle Ball, reimagining it in this way, feels very appropriate. It's brilliant in its own way. I think it's groundbreaking, this revival. And yeah, give them the Tony for best revival. Like, it's in the bag. This is what, yeah, has anything been this reimagined? Maybe Sunset Boulevard. Again, Andrew Lloyd Webber shows are great for reimagining. Go check out Cats the Jellicle Ball. I really want to hear from everybody what you think of this show. Many people have seen it off Broadway. I didn't see it there. Let me know if and how it changed. I want to hear all your thoughts. Oh, and let me wrap this up with Bored and Confused is the name of my channel. So was I bored? No, not bored. And this was 2 hours and 45 minutes. Interestingly, you know, they cut a lot out, but the ballroom stuff is filling in those spaces. So this is a long show, but I was never bored. It is a great time in the theater. So was I confused? Well, yeah, because more than half of the time the lyrics just don't match with what's going on the stage. But honestly, with the original Cats, the lyrics were so unimportant anyhow. Oh, wait, okay, we're gonna do one little pet peeve. And we all say, oh, well, I never was there ever a cat so clever as magical Mr. Mistoffelees. Everybody sing along. Oh, well, I never was there ever. That is set in such a weird way. It sounds like, oh, well, I never was there ever. A cat so clever as magical. It should be, oh, I never. Was there ever a cat so clever as magical Mr. Mistoffelees? That's how the lyrics should be set. So that's one of my pet peeves with Andrew Lloyd Webber. This is, I think Cats might be the one show where he took existing text and set it to music. And usually he writes music and then the lyricist is like, good luck. Usually Tim Rice. And there's a lot of times when the lyric audibly doesn't make sense because it's not been set in the way that we speak it. And so Cats has always been a show where the lyrics, one, they're also, for American ears, a lot of the lyrics don't make sense. I remember up, up, up. I always thought it was past the Russell Hotel. I always thought it was up, 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 hear the rustle of tails, because their tails are rustling. Anyhow, that was a tangent. So look, the lyrics have never been important for Cats, in my opinion, and they're not important in Cats the Jellicle Ball either. In fact, you'll do best to ignore them until they underline them for you to be like, this one fits ballroom culture, and then you can be like, oh yes, it does. Well done. All right, so yeah, confused during the show, but it's why I don't like Cats. But I appreciate this one because of what it's doing. I liked Sunset Boulevard, and people who love Sunset Boulevard hated them because they loved the original. I don't like the original Cats, so I like that they changed it, and I had a good time. Oh, and I didn't mention, André De Shields is in this. How did I leave that out? André De Shields is in Cats the Jellicle Ball. He's back on Broadway where he belongs. He is not as mobile as he was when I last saw him. So guys, go see André De Shields in this amazing wig and costume. Broadway royalty, this may be, I don't want to say it, but go see André De Shields while you can. We're running out of shows where he can be upright and not in a chair. So check this out. I've seen it on Broadway. I've seen the tour. I've been in it. I don't think I'll ever be in this one, but I was so glad to see Cats the Jellicle Ball. Thank you. For those of you who made it to the end of this ramble, let me know below if you like the rambled ones, if you like the scripted ones, or if you want me to do something in between. It's probably do something in between. All right. Thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to bringing you in the next one. All right. Bye.
Don't wanna drift away.